you might as well turn it up loud, put your foot on the gas and have some fucking adventures. I hope some people have adventures with this record. Do something crazy, be free, be happy.
Hi, I'm Erica, and I'm joined by Julia, Nick, and Olive of Sunflower Bean for the latest in NME's In Conversation series. How are you all doing today?
We're great.
Yeah, doing really good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. I'm really excited because we get to share some really fun news with fans today. Your latest album, Headful of Sugar, which is out this May. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah. So I know the message of the album is in the title. You've said it was about fast pleasures, the sugar of life, the joy that comes with letting go of everything you thought mattered, which I think is such a great theme to dig into. But why did you decide to go with that theme? And why did you decide to go with it right now in this moment?
Well, I think that it's something that we all deal with on a daily basis. It's kind of saying, look at all the things that we get and does it make you happy? Do you feel free at the end of the day? Are you living the life you want to live? That is like sort of like this feeling of needing some other kind of substance that we're looking for in our lives.
And I think after this point in the pandemic that we've all been living in, we're so connected to quick entertainment and quick pleasure that we rely on it a lot. And I think that was a really interesting subject for us because it's so important. And when we started to make this record and started to write it, we really let ourselves be free with all of the kind of styles of song and vibe that we wanted to put together. And we really felt like that freedom that was on the record was really connected with the thought of fast pleasure. It really is like a psychedelic pop rock record. And it was just like this sweetness that was on our mind.
Yeah, I think that it's a fun record. It has a lot of hope and bombast, and it's sort of like playing with like these themes of like connectivity and like a hopefulness about the future while also trying to wade through the present.
Yeah, it is such like a cathartic and hopeful album. I read about the album before listening to it. And in my head, I was like, okay, we're going to be talking about like the like mundane every day. We're going to talk about capitalism. And I guess like I had this assumption that would be a little darker, but then you listen to it and it's really joyful and cathartic. How did you balance those themes with the sound that's so bright to create this, I love this term, gleeful anarchy that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think that we were writing about things in a way that were personal and like micro, like, things like going to the airport or like getting a coffee or like going to a bar, but in the context of all this stuff that surrounds it and the way we live our lives today is so like fast paced. And we just wanted to kind of like capture this sort of like experience of like what it's really like to like try to find meaning in your daily life.
We want people to feel that energy with us rather than us telling them what to feel. You know what I mean? I think all of our, my favorite art and our favorite art is the one that the kinds that bring you in and take you on a journey together. And so I think rather than us trying to say, this is what you need, this is how you should feel, we just tried to convey the feeling that we were feeling and having the faith that a lot of people feel similarly.
Yeah, and also like sound wise, I feel like we were focusing on just making it fun and like a good listen. And even though like the topics are kind of darker and heavier, like I think that's kind of like my favorite music is the type that's like super dark and heavy, but also like just fun to listen to and can kind of get you through things like that.
And plus, yeah, we now is not the time to be like weighted under these big heavy, lofty clouds. Like, it's the time to cut through with action and power and like life, like vibrancy. And that was what we really wanted to, put into the world.
Yeah. Vibrancy. I definitely feel like you nailed that. So I know you recorded this at home and all of you were able to step into the role of engineer for the first time. So how did this self-sufficiency and solitude outside of like a traditional studio environment impact the album creatively and even the sound of the album?
I think it took a lot of like pressure off, like just the fact that like, I don't know, when you go into a studio, like the clock's running, like you're losing money, as soon as you step in, and like that's kind of like, I don't know, it's like shitty to like record and make music like that sometimes. So just like the fact that we have our own space now and like are able to just like let things kind of like, I don't know, take the time they need and like let our excitement about things kind of guide the way instead of like outside pressures, I think really informed how the album came out. And like later on we were able to like finish it up in different studios. Like we went upstate to a more professional studio for a little bit to like, just do some more tracking and kind of like kick it around for a little. We did a bunch of like mixing and stuff at Electric Lady in New York, which was really cool. So
we did some things at JP's studio. At
JP's studio too. And like, yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it worked for us like this rather than just like writing the songs, like having them all practiced. Like we kind of just like were writing and recording as we were going over like the whole like year pretty much.
Yeah. And we've been together almost every day of the pandemic, like working and writing and just like, just creating together. And I think the fact that Olive was like able to, we were just all growing together, and the growth that you did as an engineer really made it possible for us to, just be a lot more experimental with what we were doing on this record than any of our past records. And really helped us figure out what was important to us in the tracks on this record. And a lot of times that was really heavy percussion, really heavy drums, big vocal, just seeing how big and powerful we could make certain tracks. And we were lucky to work with JP, Jacob Portrait too, who really got what we were trying to do and helped take it over the finish line.
Yeah. So kind of going back to what you've mentioned about, being able to experiment more. You've talked about following your instinct when it came to this album and not looking to the rock canon for inspiration. I'm curious, how would you say the creative process was different from previous releases, specifically 22 and Blue, compared to this release?
Yeah, I think that we were playing more as a band in a room earlier in our career, and then we started branching out more to sort of like layering and doing different tracks and then like adding stuff on and just like building the songs more instead of like practicing them as like a 3-piece. And we also kind of wanted to declutter everything, where like 22 had this like really ambitious like string section and a lot of percussion and a lot of tracks. We kind of wanted to like just do something that was a little bit more stripped down, but then have every single element like really be like super bold. So even if there's only like bass, vocal, and drums, they're like all very distinct and they're all like really doing something insanely important. So in a way, I feel like we wanted to go for something less ornate and something more like punk.
And I think, like a big theme on this record emotionally and I think what became sonically is like letting go. I think like 22 and Blue is a record that we, all of your records are your babies, and it, was such a special, important record and such a special, important time in our lives that gave us the chance to tour the world and really do this. And at this point where we're at, we really just wanted to let go of yeah, the kind of the pressures that you put on yourself or that people put on bands, or what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to sound. And we wanted to, just kind of take the reins, and being able to do a lot of stuff here made that possible. And even the pandemic made it possible, like I think the fact that there were limitations on what we could do and where we could go actually made, I think, a way cooler record, because it gave it gave us all this time. Like everything that's on there, everything sonically that has survived is there for a reason. And even if it's more like, it is definitely way more punk, but it had the time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
It had the time to sort of like ferment and get strange, like over time.
Yes.
So I think it's like, it's not a record. You couldn't go into a studio and make this record and it would sound like this.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to one place. It's just not
even
what
the
it is.
conventions of like miking a guitar amp in the right way, we just like ignored completely.
Just
and
what
like
sounds good.
all the different stuff that like people like to do, like protocols about gear, we just ignored. So that's part of
We
the
worked on, just like really like the only rule was like working upon excitement. And if something is like getting you going, then like good, we got it. Like we don't need to do a drum take 7 times.
like a lot of the vocals.
How about like 2 times, like
a lot of the vocals are the first take, unedited. So there's like a real like immediacy to everything.
Even if we tried again, we were like, that's it. Just stay with the magic.
There's so much like real magic captured on this album.
I love that so much. So there has to be like a great deal of trust to sort of do that. And I was also curious, kind of going back to what you were saying about 22 in Blue. I think when somebody releases like a critically acclaimed album that way, a lot of times they can kind of try to create the same thing again. But you took the chance of being like, we're just going to go in the direction of what like feels right energetically. What do you think it was that made you feel confident to just kind of trust your instincts there and go in the direction that was calling you, as opposed to like trying to recreate something that worked before?
I mean, I think that
it's just who we are.
I
don't think we could make the same thing twice, even if like we actually wanted to, but like we also don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just, I feel like with this one, we actually were able to like let go of that, like own pressure on ourselves a little bit more.
This is like the first time that I feel like I've ever been able to like write songs in a way that doesn't feel like a battle. And I wasn't precious about anything that I wrote, and I wasn't really concerned about it in like a protecting it way, and allowing the things that work to work and allowing the things that don't work to just go and never be heard again. So, and
plus, like, at the end of the day, all you can do, especially when you make stuff, is trust yourself. There's nobody else really to turn to. You could ask a million people what to do, but at the end of the day, all you have is your ears and yourself. And when you and your team, and luckily, like the 3 of us have a lot of trust in each other artistically, and a lot of faith in each other. And it is a leap of faith a lot of the time, but like, it's what we do. It's who we are, know?
And I think that there's no way we could ever be as precious as we were back then ever again, just because of the way everything has worked out. We'll never be so sentimental ever again. And it's probably has to do with the way the world's changed, and also growing up. Yeah. And also just being less like, I'm just like literally less interested in like the 70s now than I was when I was 22.
I feel like everyone has that phase around 22 where they're like, you know what was great? The 70s. I totally get that. That resonates.
And that's what makes 22 Blue such a great record. I still love it.
Well, it's the classic thing of like a lot of artists on their second record, they like get some notoriety and then they want to make their Pet Sounds or their Sgt. Peppers or like their like Rumors or whatever crazy or album it is. And then like we were like, oh, actually, we don't want to do something that's like so like insanely pretentious and like precious. Like we want to do something that's more just like has the energy of like walking into the studio and picking up a guitar and like just turning it up.
So you did mention like with the pandemic kind of being one of those things as well, I think a lot of us experienced where we couldn't be precious about things. We didn't really have a choice. How do you feel like the pandemic impacted this album? I know you had this quote of like, tomorrow's not promised, no tour is promised, no popularity or health or money is promised. Have you always kind of had that energy or that feeling of like every chance is like the one time to do it the way that you want to? Or do you feel like the pandemic specifically was like the inciting situation that landed you on that belief?
I mean, I think that if you do this kind of thing, anyone that's doing bands or anyone that's being an artist, like you have to have a little bit of that all the time, in order to survive, because nothing really nothing is promised. It's a fight all the time to say what you are trying to say and get it heard. But I do think in this era that has become even more difficult, but I do think it has a lot of gifts, like especially personally, like allowing all of us to develop as people more and be more in touch with what we wanted. And I do think that makes us less fearful, because, we used to spend 150 nights on the road every year. Like we weren't, Nick didn't have an apartment here. Like Nick didn't have an apartment for many years because there was no point in doing it. And so I think like the fact that everything that we thought was going to be a part of how we were in the world was removed, and still really is hanging by a thread. The chance that you were still very, very far from normal. I do think because of that, it gave us the chance and the space to try something else and say, let's be free. Like, or especially when you get into, side B of the record, there's a lot of different sounds. There's like a song that's like a dance song, club song that comes out of, me DJing a lot in the city. And that's something that you might not always have thought of is Sunflower Bean. But the way that we see it, I think, is like, if you like Sunflower Bean, you like Sunflower Bean. You've signed up for you've signed up for the what happens when the three of us come together. And I think that's cool.
I agree. So I want to dig into some tracks. The album opener, Who Put You Up to This, has so many great lines. I think my favorite has to be In Another Life, I Was Your Bitch, In Another Life. Such a great line. So many good lines. But you mentioned the track is about getting away without running away. What do you mean by that? And what is the character in the song trying to escape from?
Totally. Yeah, I think that, I think the opening line, Who Put You Up to This, really is, can kind of be traced back to the heart of the song, because I think it's a question that someone asks you, but it's also a question that you ask yourself. And in the context of this song, it is a little bit of a rhetorical question. But I think that it really makes a lot of sense as the opener and as the beginning of this record, because it's kind of like the crack in the foundation of everything that we were, and kind of this entrance and like rebirth into this record and this new kind of feeling of freedom. So I think on the verses, there's a lot of this like shedding, shedding your old self. I was a bitch. I was your bitch. I was a fish. I was all these things. Like I'm doing all these things. Like, and then in the chorus, it's really talking about that kind of letting go that I mentioned before. And it's both letting go of, maybe a lover, maybe, someone like that, but it's also a letting go of your past self, and a letting go of the selves that don't serve you anymore, that are holding you back. And, so that's definitely why we placed it where we placed it. And it's doing a few different things for the record. And I think in itself,
it is the cracking.
It is the beginning of the beginning of the new.
Yeah, I love it. It's like a warning shot, like of what's to come. It's really great. So I wanted to talk about In Flight as well, about just like, it's such a beautiful and melodic song about just like returning to your hometown. I know a lot of people can relate to that, especially now. And you were talking about coming home from tour, but like a lot of us like went home away from the city before, like during the pandemic. So I'm curious, what was it that drew you to write a song about an experience that I don't know a lot of people would, write a song about, Nick?
I don't know. It was just what I was in the milieu of. Like, I was home for the first time with a little time off from tour, and everything just felt very small and boxed in. And I was very comfortable. I was with my family, but I had this feeling that like I needed to like push myself and like, do things that I didn't do because I was so busy with the band. Like get an apartment, like get a car so I can go places, like do all these things that like I really put off because of being on this ride of like touring and everything. And I think it's very relatable. I mean, most people who are from the suburbs like have that moment where they realize that they need to like get out of their comfort zone and like take a risk and move to like maybe a city where they don't know anyone, or just pursue something beyond like what you're currently doing, because it's easy to get stuck in routine. And, it's for a lot of people, there isn't a way to get out of that routine financially. So you need to like take risks in order to, change your life to what you want it to be if you're unhappy.
And I think it's almost like connected to who put you up to this in a way, when we're, there is that feeling of like flight and change and, escape without running. And I always think of, I remember when we wrote that and the, when we were like putting the chorus together and singing it. And I always imagine, it's like a kind of like a Romeo and Juliet, like double suicide, like car off a cliff kind of thing. But, the song is like, is so melodic and so like celebratory. So
yeah, and we originally put like this like fake strings in the chorus that sounded like there is a light that never goes out.
Mhm.
So I think that there was a good amount of like that sort of influence, like some sort of like Smiths Morrissey sentiment in the song.
No, I love it. And I love that you're singing it in like this duet-y way. So Roll the Dice, super gritty. I would love to hear that song live, just sing along with the Win, Win, Win. So good. And I know it's about this wild GameStop stock market story that we probably all kind of saw happening from last year. What was it about that story specifically that you decided, I'm going to transmute this into a song? Because I think you can listen to that song and kind of realize what it's about without thinking like, oh, this is about the GameStop story. But what is it about that situation that made you want to write a song about it?
Yeah, it's not specifically about the whole GameStop thing, but it was definitely like that was part of like the inspiration behind it. Like this idea that a lot of people who are under 30 don't really see like a stable or traditional, path to economic stability that like you used to have with like the whole like post-war like boom. And, a lot of people our age are finding other ways to make money. And it's just sort of this like mindset of trying to get ahead and trying to grind. And we're so ingrained with this idea of like, you need to work hard, like millennials stay up all night working, that kind of thing. And, just this sort of like, whether it's like cryptocurrency or Depop or just like all these different ways that people are trying to make money on their own terms and kind of like game that sort of system. So I guess the GameStop thing was just really like amazing because all these like people came together on the internet and took this stock and like massively inflated the value at the expense of all the hedge funds. And it just like sort of had this like almost like 2021 like Wolf of Wall Street like sort of like energy where like, yeah, we're like, but only this time it was at the expense of like the most evil people in the world instead of like, subprime mortgages or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think like, like that like the I just want to win part, like there's something very freeing about just saying it, because you know we all live day to day, like we're all like, yeah, like Nick said, in this grind, and you don't ever really know how to get out, and you're like, if I could just win, like maybe tomorrow I'm gonna win, maybe next album I'm gonna win, maybe next year I'm gonna win, and you like you're always you're kind of like edging yourself all the time with that hope that relief is gonna come. And I remember when we wrote this, and it just felt so honest to say it.
Yeah.
It just felt so right to say it and just be like, I like in some way, I just want to win a little bit, especially within these circumstances. So no, I do think that is one of my favorite things about that song, for sure.
That's interesting. I feel like, yeah, as millennials, we're kind of programmed to not want to win that certain way, but also like being told like this is the only way that you're going to find stability is if you win.
And plus, like, like we started so young. We were always like the absolute like babies, like we were never accepted by the millennials fully, but we tried for many years, but we never really fit in with what they were about. And we're Zillennials,
Yeah.
we can see like everything that like Z is about, but we spent all this time courting the millennials. And I think it puts us in this position where we're just like,
I think that we just terminally have a chip on our shoulder about everything.
Yeah, we're just like, all right, we're just gonna try it anyway,
Yeah.
We're just gonna be right where we are.
Yeah, like that's the way to go. So I know you've announced some live shows in the UK for this spring, but do you have any plans for the summer? Any festival plans that you're able to share with us?
I'm not sure what we're able to share, but we do have a lot more dates. I think by the time this is out, they will be announced. And we're just gonna continue to be announcing them as we can, and as the world continues to allow things to happen.
True. Yeah, we have to keep that in mind. So I was watching this older NME interview where you were talking about touring with the Manic Street Preachers for the first time, playing Cardiff Castle. And now, Julia, you've worked with them on their single, The Secret He Had Missed. How was that experience? What can you tell us about it?
Oh man, the Manics have been just a truly awesome group and people to us with the Cardiff Castle show, with everything, and they gave 22 in Blue a lot of love, and I think that I don't know, that's really priceless to us back then, and even now to have a band like that be that generous and supportive to someone else coming up into it, like that kind of stuff is really important. And the fact that they recognize that and like how to champion other things is just really a really sweet thing. And they got in touch about this song, and I remember hearing it and going through all the lyrics and just thinking about how cool it was that they're a Welsh band and writing about these painters. And just, I think that the Manics have a really amazing way of being really smart and really and writing great pop and just rock, just art songs, like I think that they really have their own way of putting everything together in a way that is truly them, and the world has loved it. And I got to be a part of that record. It was the first #1 record that I've ever been a part of, and
recorded right here in this
basement.
Nice.
Olive engineered it.
I love that song. It's so catchy.
Yeah, I still listen to it, and I'm like walking down the street. And I was actually, I got so close. It was like a day or two before Omicron was announced. I was I had my tickets and everything, and I was gonna perform with them at Wembley for that show, but it could not happen due to the virus who shall not be named. But But no, it was a really a pleasure. Every interaction with the Manics is a pleasure, and an honor that I got to be a part of that record.
Yeah. Now, hopefully we can all start to travel to shows again. But before we go, you said that this album makes you want to dance, makes you want to scream, which is the ideal experience, in my opinion. So when it comes to fans and they finally get their ears on Headful of Sugar in May, what do you hope they take from it, a message they receive from it, if any, that you kind of want to push through your music?
I would hope that, like with all of our records, that they find like comfort and companionship in the record. I think that we have tried to be true to ourselves because we do feel that connection with our fans and with other people. And I think that we want them to connect with that and feel that it's okay to be themselves, feel that it's okay to dance, it's okay to scream, it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to be reckless. All of it makes you who you are, and that's a really beautiful thing, and you can't help it anyway, so you might as well enjoy it. You might as well turn it up loud, put your foot on the gas and have some fucking adventures. I hope some people have adventures with this record. Do something crazy, be free, be happy.
It's a perfect note to end on. You can't help it, so you might as well enjoy it. Julia, Nick, Olive, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so excited for everyone to hear the album.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for all the questions.
Of course. Have a good one.